Welcome back. Jackie here along with Michelle Brown and Rebecca Herold, our privacy professor, who is here to also keep us informed on how to keep our information safe when we're talking devices. Everything's devices these days. And you just put out a major report talking about Alexa, that wonderful device that many of us have in our homes apparently are, yeah?
You do? Okay.
Yes. And I'm not, so for maybe others, including myself, that aren't familiar with the situation that recently, kind of give us the quick little concern.
So there was a woman in Portland, Oregon, and they had an Alexa. And of course, with Alexa, you have a wake word, right, for these smart devices. So when you say the wake word, that's when they start listening and taking action. Well, apparently, there was a group of people discussing things around the Alexa, and Alexa misunderstood what they were saying. The device thought it heard them say Alexa, and then thought it heard them say, through a weird combination of events. But Alexa thought they told it to send the recording of the conversation to one of their contacts. So it sent a recording of what they were saying.
Of the whole conversation?
Of the conversation. After it thought it heard the wake word, it sent that recording to one of their random contacts in Seattle. And they said, you know, it wasn't any damage done, I guess, so we know so far. But it really points out the problem with these smart devices, these digital assistants. Something very important for both of you to know too, since you have them, these were created with ease of use in mind. They were not created with security and privacy in mind. So keep in mind that just because they're requiring you to say Alexa, that's not like a password. That's not like a security feature. And also the fact that it's constantly listening, obviously the engineers who created the devices did not really go through thorough testing to make sure that these devices could not make mistakes and have these types of things go on. So one of my big points for both of you and our listeners is if you have a smart device, and there's so many of them now.
I say we're not just talking Alexa.
Not just Alexa, it's your everyone, Google Home and Echo, and there's a lot of others. Plus, there's listening smart TVs, there's smart other devices. Keep in mind, again, they were for ease of use. So if you have anything going on in the vicinity that you don't want to accidentally have sent, turn it off. I mean, a lot of people will say, well, that defeats the purpose of having the digital assistant if it's off and you can't ask it a question any time. But truly, think about it. If it takes you just 10 or 20 seconds to turn it on when you're ready to actually ask it a question versus weeks, months, or years of trying to fix a privacy breach.
See, there aren't any settings that you can go in and change so that it's...
Not right now, and that's what really bothers me, quite frankly, as someone who comes from a systems engineer background, because what they should do is have like a two-step process to wake it up, just like you have for a lot of your websites now and devices. If instead of saying just Alexa, if they would allow people, allow the people using them to set their own, so not everybody's using the same word, and then after you say it, have Alexa come back and maybe ask you a question to validate that that was truly you. It would only take, literally, it would only take an extra 10 seconds.
But aren't these the same idea? Because I like to say is, hey Siri, and it'll awaken. So aren't even our phones,
your phones,
what you're talking about?
Oh my gosh, yes. In fact, there's so many apps that listen to what's going on, and it's actually it's so interesting. There's a software company that a large portion of apps actually have incorporated into the design that are made to constantly listen to different things going on. Now they say it's to listen to what's going on your computer, so the sound coming from your computer, from your TV, from the radio, so that they can send you ads about what you might like to do, and they state up and down, oh well, it's not your conversation we're listening to, it's these digital airwaves. But I want to see evidence that they've tested that out.
So where does this all go? If it's constantly listening,
Yes.
where does all of that go, and who's listening to that?
Well, that's
Oh my gosh, can you imagine all that?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question, because there are so many third parties that do work for the big companies. Literally, some of them have thousands of third parties of the large organizations that they share this data with, so they can do different types of things. In fact, Facebook yesterday admitted that they gave access to Huawei. Now, Huawei is a China telecom company. They actually have the most sales in the world of digital devices. We aren't as familiar with them here, but a lot of people have them. But they admitted that they gave access so that they could use the data from Facebook to test their devices, the mobile devices out. And when you look at it, they have thousands of third parties. And it wasn't just Huawei, it was also 60 in total that we know of that they admitted for devices that they were giving access to the Facebook data. And they claimed that, well, we told them they could use the data, but only for their test and development purposes. Now, I've been in this business a long time, and I can tell you, when people have real data that they're using for test and development purposes,
right,
there's others in that organization that are going to say, hey, we have a lot of valuable data here, especially the marketers, the sales folks, the folks who are creating new things. The fact that Facebook, from what was reported, the fact that Facebook wasn't doing any type of oversight about what they were actually doing with that data truly disturbs me, because it's showing that they're just trusting that giving access to their 2.25 billion users, was something that they just had ignored. Of course, Facebook and all social media sites, why were they created? They were created to allow for easy sharing of data. And where do they make their money? Well, we don't pay for it to use the social media sites. That data is the money. So, we need to keep that in mind. In fact, with Huawei, what was interesting was with these devices, the device actually figured out a way to not only get to the people who were using the Huawei devices, but it got to the data of their friends and then their friends' friends. So think about that huge ring of folks. And when you start thinking about how many people that applies to, it's probably pretty close to that 2.25 billion. So, I mean, there's all these different devices. They're listening, they're taking data. I think what you guys and what also your listeners need to keep in mind is, with these listening devices, if you don't want them to hear what you're going to be talking about, and
shut them off.
Shut them off. Just shut them off. If you have your kids playing around them, kids,
my Alexa's mainly used for tell us a joke. That's what I
say. Mine's used for music.
Not much out. Or play a song tell us a joke.
But can you imagine if somebody came into the room and started talking about something serious?
Right.
Turn it off. I mean, 10 seconds is worth it.
You sent us some notes on what we were talking about today, and I love the line that says Facebook and social media sites were not designed to protect data and your privacy.
They were not.
Keep that in mind.
That's up to us. It's a personal responsibility to do what we can. And
one other tip. I see too many people putting way too much personal data out there.
Right.
I mean, those of us in the privacy and security space, most of our birthdays are January 1st. Don't put your real birthdays out there, because that information alone can also lead to people creating new identities.
What are a couple of other, that was in my mind thinking, what are some of the key, because I'm like, they can look around, whatever, I don't know. But what are some things that?
Well, also the GPS tracking is another thing. Why do you need to have GPS tracking turned on? I mean,
I've never understood that.
Yeah, turn it off, because that data can create a history of where you've been. And we've already seen that it's been used not only for law enforcement and investigations, but in divorce cases, in insurance cases. You know, there's data created wherever you have a digital device. So keep everything turned off that you don't really need to.
Great tips if people want to follow along, because you give tips out all the time. Give us your locations where we can find you, Rebecca.
Yes, definitely. So you can find me out online at my website at privacyguidance.com and also Symbis360.com, and then on Twitter at privacyprof.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Hit me up there.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. More, just keeping you informed. Want to make sure you're staying safe this morning on CWIO Live. We'll be right back.